Whatever depressing fate lay on the other side of those doors, there was no point in putting it off any longer. I'd killed more cops than cholesterol, and still no sign of Becker. It wasn't the first time it dawned on me I should probably have gone over the plan in more detail, but it was too late for that now. AUP. Those were the guys who jumped the yacht in Panama. And what was this? Had the Brazilian cops tipped them off about the money? If I didn't hurry, Becker would be long gone. About the only friend I had left in that town. Sao Paulo's own David and Goliath. I'd pinned De Silva as a coward, but he'd risked more than anyone, and he'd never taken a bribe. I still didn't know how I'd gone from drinking myself numb in New Jersey to looting corpses in Brazil, but this was where I was. 5,000 miles from a home I couldn't go back to, on another suicide mission to clean up a mess that wasn't even mine. I'd spent my career dozing off in the briefing room. Now wasn't the time. The CS were all but out of business in Sao Paulo, and suddenly Becker and Victor looked like local heroes in the war on crime. They'd really gotten their money's worth outsourcing their problems onto me. My old pal Serrano. We'd both been unwitting clowns in this sorry circus. Part of me hoped he'd made it out of that hotel alive. I didn't recognize the guy. Maybe this was the new slum king De Silva had talked about. A throne never stays empty for long. Fame at last. It was no great surprise I'd made Ufe's most wanted list. I hadn't done much to improve the reputation of Americans abroad over the past few weeks, and there they were, my illustrious employers. 3 dead and still every chance I'd go 4 for 4. None of this was going to look good on the resume. And I was in good company. Howell Passos, sent up north to find a washed-up gringo who would act tough and play dumb. Boy, did he ever deliver.
Vou implotar um turno pra você, otário!
It was starting to feel as if I'd never leave that place. Like one of those nightmares where you keep running and running only to discover you're chasing yourself. Nothing I was going to find in there could make a difference now. I had all the evidence I needed. Tear gas. This wasn't good. I needed to find a way out of that stairwell and fast. That would have been too easy. The doors were all locked. There had to be something else I wasn't seeing. My eyes and throat burned, but at least I could breathe. I was trying to work out what direction I was headed in when I discovered some more Brazilian architecture not designed for the American physique. There it was, the tape from the Bronco security system. Jesus, it was that guy. I had seen him in the favela, Bachmeyer, Becker's right-hand man. His time would come, him and Becker. I'd seen enough. It was time to bring this nightmare to an end.
O seu dinheiro representa o seu futuro. Mantenha-o seguro com o Banco Boitatá para a sua casa, o seu carro ou o seu negócio. Venha falar com o Boitatá.
Threatens to be the worst volcanic eruption in Ecuador for 40 years.
The epidemic of violence that grips Brazil's major cities continues to worsen. On Monday, a massive gun battle between drug gangs and Special Forces police in the favela of Nova Esperanza left 150 people dead or critically injured. Mayoral candidates were divided on the reactions to the altercation. Camila Machado blamed the police force for acting without restraint and effective government oversight. Victor Branco, whose eldest brother was murdered last week and whose youngest brother is missing and is feared to have been an innocent victim in Monday's gun battle, issued a statement calling for more funding for law enforcement and vowing to stop at nothing to make Sao Paulo safe again. In Buenos Aires, the world's largest chorizo caused quite a stir.
I couldn't get that tape out of my head. Why had Ufe killed Rodrigo? I wasn't going to find any answers in the forensics lab. I had to push on. Hey, pal. Nice to see you.
Vai pra casa, gringo de merda.
I don't think we've been properly introduced.
I know who you are.
Then you should have killed me in the office when you had the chance.
There's still time, meu camarada.
another pile of bodies and still nothing to show for it. It felt like I was detaching, that maybe this was revenge for something else, something buried deep in the past. Luckily, I wasn't the only cop with a pill problem. It was a little late to be thinking about precautions, but something told me this shit show was barely through the warm-up act. Rodrigo, Giovanna, Passos, everyone who'd meant anything was gone. Like so many times before, I'd found myself alone, locked on a course of destruction. It was at my worst when I was at my best. They had their body armor, I had mine. About the only friend I had left in that town. It felt like I was going around in circles, getting further away from the truth. I had to find my way out of there. Becker and Bachmeyer had taken their pound of flesh and sold it on the black market. Now I was coming for mine.
Vamos acabar com essa merda agora! Vamos indo! Se estiver na
Beleza, rapaziada, bom trabalho! Só tô esperando a confirmação do outro grupo, mas o gringo já deve estar morto agora.
Senhor, ele não parece estar morto!
Da puta, pelo amor de Deus!
Americans love to interfere in things you do not understand.
Oh, I understand plenty, asshole.
How stupid can one man be? I hoped I'd be the one to kill you.
I couldn't get a direct shot. I was gonna have to get creative. It was a waste of bullets. His cover was too good. Those ceiling tiles get kind of loose. It was worth a shot. This was the passkey to Becker's office. I was close to the end of all this, and I could feel it. Becker! Something funny about dying? I felt like the avenging angel. I looked like a fat bald dude with a bad temper. You disgusting piece of shit! I know everything!
Not everything, my friend. Let go of him, Max. Huh? There's a good fellow.
Wow. Victor, I was wondering when you'd reappear out of whatever slimy hole you live in.
I'd like to just say, Max, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work, for my family, and for cleaning up that horrible mess with the crasha preto for us. You know I'm tough on crime. I give you a bonus, but I think you just frittered it away. Becker, take his gun.
Toma, seu filho da puta!
They had barred the door. My only hope was to chase them down. I knew they'd be leaving town, and my guess is they would try to fly out of here. Rich people love to fly away. God damn it!
Okay, Max. Now you check the main terminal. I'm gonna go and look for the Bronco plane by the hangar, okay?
Let's do it.
You keep an eye out in there. You know Becker's gonna have some guys in there watching out for you.
Yep. So, of course, I knew they were looking for me. But the airport was about the only place a fat gringo might blend in. Well, there or a sex club.
Ei! Parado aí! Parado!
My delusions of disguise lasted around 2 seconds. They were out in force. And they were out for me. But then, I was out for them, too. Every last one of those bastards. Check in. Come on, bastards. vacation was coming to an end. Only I wasn't heading home with a sunburn, a bag full of duty-free, and a dose of VD. I was making a bet that would put me in handcuffs or a body bag. These were Becker's guys. Him and Victor had a private airport to go with their private army and their private jet. Chances were I wasn't going to be alive much longer, so why not get a buzz on?
Chaos and guns. I might have known you'd turn up.
Sorry. You heading home?
Oh, I am here to pick up my daughter, but I imagine she's stuck on the plane. What are you up to?
I don't know. Trying to make a difference. Giving back.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
Take care.
Yeah.
Nothing was happening back here. I had to get to where the action was. Judgment with a smile. You can't beat it. The doors lead in the direction of the main terminal. The customer restroom. I could get through to the departure gates up ahead. This wasn't the kind of place where you waited to board a private jet. Victor and Becker were out in the departure lounge somewhere. There were UFE all over the airport, and civilians were being moved out. Looking at it one way, shutting down the airport for their escape was a weird sort of compliment. But one I didn't need. happened at the other end of the departure lounge. Things past the TSA. Just perfect. Grenades. They weren't here. I had to keep moving down through the airport. There weren't any other flights clogging up air traffic control. Victor would be clear for takeoff as soon as he was ready. To the next terminal was down the escalators. didn't look like there'd be any trams leaving until the power was on. If I was going to be able to turn the power on anywhere, it'd be in the office. Trams were running again. Maybe they'd take me to my gate. Maybe they'd bring more guys wanting to whack me. Maybe both. Felt like I might be able to recharge for a second. At least until we pulled into the station and met more murderous assholes. Bitch! Didn't work out like that. Of course there'd be a tram full of goons trying to derail me. Max Payne Express. Felt like I'd missed out on the joke, and it was a real good one. Come on. The tram was slowing down, and I'd only just gotten on board. I had to salvage what I could and see what was waiting for me. This was my stop. It had taken me right into the heart of it. Becker's gimps were everywhere, so he and Bronco must be close. The smart move would have been sticking with De Silva and going straight to the hangar, but when was I ever about smart moves? I'm a dumb move guy. Hey Max, we'll drive onto the runway. No thanks, let me walk in the main entrance. I'll put a big shit-eating grin on my face and let these assholes take turns trying to kill me. That's my style, and it's too late in the day to hope for change. Boy, were they throwing numbers at this problem. But then, I'd chosen to be here. I wanted this. Was it redemption? Not really. It was pathetic desperation, and not much else. The further in I got, the more guys I saw. Becker wasn't running a police force. He was running an army. These guys were better trained and better equipped than anyone I'd seen out here. And I'd seen some mean sons of bitches. The mission was screaming suicide, but I didn't give a damn. At least I'd die being a pain in the ass. There the bastards were, sneaking off in their rich kid's toy.
I ain't got nowhere else to go, Becker! Mr. Payne, I believe you had something to say to me! Mate ele! Mate ele agora! Não! Não! Não!
This was it. It was almost over. So I guess I'd become what they wanted me to be. A killer. Some rent-a-clown with a gun who puts holes in other bad guys. Well, that's what they had paid for, so in the end, that's what they got. Say what you want about Americans, but we understand capitalism. You buy yourself a product and you get what you pay for. And these chumps had paid for some angry gringo without the sensibilities to know right from wrong. Here I was, about to execute this poor bastard like some dime store angel of death, and I realized they were correct. I wouldn't know right from wrong if one of them was helping the poor and the other was banging my sister.
Get in, Max! I'm in. Just drive the fucking car. Go!
We had one card left to play.
Just get me close. Guys are running in over on the right. Over on the right. Come on! Got a flight to catch. He's not going to take off without us. Don't give up! That about chunks it up. Set up a roadblock. I don't give a sense if citizens' rights are high on their agenda right now. Quick like one! Eyes front! I normally am behind the dash kind of cop. Only I've been one of them too. Your career's coming down with that plane. Let's get it over with. Ah! Wait, Max! No! Stop! Max! We have what we need on him now. Let him enjoy a trial and a spell in prison. Let him suffer. Trust me. You know I'll walk. You'll walk with a lift!
Of the City Police's Special Forces unit who have been implicated
implicated in human trafficking has been disbanded indefinitely. Meanwhile, Victor Bronco, the politician at the center of the scandal, who is accused of laundering money from the scheme to fund his political campaign for mayor, was yesterday found hanged in his police cell. It's not yet clear whether his death was a suicide or simply retribution for his part in a scandal that has so many families missing loved ones that were kidnapped and killed. City officials say a full investigation is underway.